Okay, number 39 is a Venn diagram problem, and so we have looks like cooking classes and 3 meals. And so the question is, how many people signed up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner classes? So you have to take a look at this Venn diagram and determine where are they talking about. They want to know and dinner classes. So that's like all 3. They signed up for all 3. Well, all 3 occurs right in the center of this Venn diagram right in here. So that was, and I just covered it up, but it was 14. So that's my answer for that one. Not too bad. All right, number 40 is a literal equation again. So we have v equals pi times r squared times h. And they're asking me to solve for h. Well, if you can just let go of the fact that it's all letters, this is not a hard problem because all you have to do to solve for h is divide by pi r squared on both sides. So that on the left-hand side, pi cancels with pi, r squared cancels with r squared, leaving you with just h. H is equal to v over pi r squared. And so that is going to be choice C. Number 47 is a problem where you're going to want to multiply by the smallest number that both 5 and 3 go into evenly, because those are my denominators. And so I would say I'm going to choose for the LCD, the lowest common denominator, I'm going to choose 15, because 15 is the smallest number that they both go into evenly. So what I do is I multiply. Let me try and make this a little bit larger. I'm going to multiply all of the parts of this equation by, let's see if I can undo that. Well, maybe not. But anyway, I'm going to multiply this equation by 15. So let me start out over here. I'm just going to rewrite this. 3/5 x minus 4. And I'm already out of room. Here, I'm going to try it up top. So 3/5 x minus 4 plus 2/3 x minus 2 equals 2/5 x minus 2. No parentheses over here. So like I said, I'm going to multiply by 15. So this is, I'm going to multiply that by 15, this by 15. And I don't need to multiply the inside of the parentheses by 15 because I'm going to distribute, and that's how it's going to get in there. But on the right-hand side, I don't have parentheses, so I have to multiply both parts by 15. So once I do that, what I'm going to see is that some stuff cancels. So for instance, I'm going to get 5 goes into 15 3 times. And so now 3 times 3, that's right here, 3 times 3, what's left over is 9. So that's going to give me 9 times x minus 4. For the second group, I have 3 goes into 15 5 times. And then I have 5 times 2, which I almost crossed out, but that's 5 times 2, which is 10. Times x minus 2. And then on the right-hand side, I get 5 goes into 15 3 times, and then I'm left with 3 times 2, which is 6x. And then on the last one here, there's nothing in the denominator, so nothing's going to cancel, so I just have to multiply 15 times 2 to get 30. So that's my equation so far. My next step, now that I've gotten rid of the fractions, is to distribute. So I'm going to do that. Oh, I'm so out of room here. Let's see. I'm going to distribute. I get 9x minus 36 when I distribute there, and then plus 10x minus 20. And on the right-hand side, there's nothing to distribute. Next step would be to combine like terms. On the right-hand side, I have two terms, on the left-hand side, I'm sorry, I have two terms with x in them. So I have 9x and 10x. That gives me 19x. And then I get also like terms, negative 36 and negative 20. Those are my constant terms. So that's going to give me negative 56 equals 6x minus 30. Okay. And now I'm going to subtract 6x from both sides. And that gives me 19x minus 6x gives 13x minus 56. I'm going to try not to write on our next problem. Equals negative 30. And now I would add 56 to both sides. So that'll give me 13x. And I get negative 30 plus 56. So that's going to give positive 26. Divide both sides by 13. And x is equal to 2. So this problem was difficult, I think, because you are probably not so comfortable with multiplying by the LCD. So I think that if you need practice on that, you can also go to Algebra Nation. I remember that Zach had a video out on that. Okay, number 48, we have a function 3.5w minus 5, and I'm looking right here in the middle of our word problem. The question is, how many windows did he wash in a 3-week period if his profit was 305.50? So this is an example where I have to decide, are they asking me or are they giving me W or are they giving me P of W? So let's take a look. It says he washes W windows. So I know that W is the number of windows, and that's what they're asking me to find. So I'm not going to be substituting in for W. They tell me his profit is 305.50. Well, the profit is given by P of W. So I'm going to go ahead and come in. So P of W is equal to 3.5W minus 5. And so now I know that P of W is my 305.50. That's my profit. So I substitute on the left-hand side. And I want to know how many windows he has to wash to make that much money, so I'm going to start solving for W. Add 5 to both sides. That gives 310.50. And then divide both sides by 3.5. Let me back up. This was 55. My mistake. So let me try to erase. So I should have added right here. Please make this correction. So I had written a 5 instead of 55. So I had 305.50 plus 55 instead of just 5 like I had. So this would have been 360.50, and then I divide that by 3.5. So I was ending up with an answer that was not an integer, which didn't seem right, so because the number of windows should be an integer. And I get 103 windows for that problem. So does that make sense? If he's charging $350 a window and he made $300, it's going to be about 100 windows. So that makes some sense to me. There is that other fee in there, the $55 in supplies, but that makes sense. So I'm good on that one. Okay, number 50, we have an inequality, and so we can just go ahead and solve that inequality. So it's negative 7 is less than 5 minus 4x, and I'm going to start by subtracting 5 from both sides, and so I get negative 12 greater than or less than negative 4x, and I'm going to divide both sides by negative 4. Oh, and when I divide by a negative, my inequality sign has to switch directions. Don't forget that part. On the left-hand side, I have a negative divided by a negative, which is positive 3, and I have x. And I remember we were talking when we did this unit that what we should do is change this so that x is on the left, but I have to keep the arrow pointing at the same side. So like it was pointing at 3 on the left, went over here, it was pointing at 3, sorry, it was pointing at x. So when I transpose it and change it, I make sure that it's pointing at x again. But what's good about this is that when you write the variable on the left-hand side, now I know which way my arrow is going to point in my problem. So I know, well, I can get rid of choices B and D because those have 4 and not 3. So I now have narrowed it down to A. I know it's an open circle. They were all open circle, but it's open circle because there's no equal sign underneath. And I need the one that has the arrow pointing to the left, so that would be this one. Now, number 54 is a decimal problem, but don't let it freak you out. We're just going to go ahead and, let's see. Got to get my pen tool back. There it is. All right, so I'm going to copy it over here. So 0.03 times x plus 10, going to have to distribute there, plus 0.04 times x minus 5, going to have to distribute here as well, equals 2.2. So I'm just going to deal with the decimals. So I have 0.03x plus 10 times 0.3. So you can use your calculator, or you might just know 10 times 0.03 really just moves that decimal one place because of there's 1 0 in the 10. And then plus 0.04x. And then times negative 5. So 5 times 0.04 is 0.2, and it's negative. Okay, so distributive step is done. Now my next step is going to be to combine like terms. And so here's my two things with x in them on the left-hand side. So I have 0.03 plus 0.04, that's 0.07x. And then my other like terms are these decimals, these constants. So I have 0.3 minus 0.2, so that's going to give me 0.1 equals 2.2. Okay, now just like any other two-step equation, I'm going to subtract, and that's going to give me 0.07x equals 2.1. And then to solve, I'm going to divide both sides by 0.07, and I get x equals 30. Okay, and that is the answer to that problem. And I'm going to write justify it because I wrote on my other side of the grid. All right, number 58 can be set up using a proportion. So I can set this up as 4 notebooks over $2.75 equals 7 notebooks over X amount of dollars. Don't know how many. So the way to solve this is to cross multiply. So you get 4x equals 7 times 2.75. So 7 times 2.75 is equal to 19.25. Divide both sides by 4, and the question is to the nearest cent. So when I divide, I'm going to get x divided by 4. 4.8125. So I got x equals 4.8125. And to the nearest cent, I'm looking at this spot right here. I want to round that number if I need to. The next digit is 2, so I don't need to round, so 481 is my solution. And I think we're on the last question. So we have another line of problem. And so I think that for us, the strategy right now would be to get this into y equals mx plus b form, because we haven't learned about x and y intercepts yet, but when we do that, it'll make this problem a little bit different for us. That's okay. So we start out with 1.4x plus 2.8y equals 28. And I'm going to start by subtracting 1.4x because I'm getting it in y equals mx plus b form. And so I get 2.8y equal to negative 1.4x plus 28. And now I'm going to divide both sides by 2.8. And I'll get y equals negative 1.4 over 2.8. You might recognize that this slope is negative and that 1.4 is half of 2.8. So that would actually reduce to 1/2. And if you divided 1.4 divided by 2.8, you would get 0.5, which hopefully you recognize as negative 1/2. The reason I want to leave it in fraction form is because when I look at the graph, I'm going to want to look for a graph that has a rise of 1 and a run of 2. And then 28 divided by 2.8 is 10. So I'm looking now for a slope of negative 1/2 and a y-intercept of 10. So which one of these has a y-intercept of 10? It looks like it could be F or it could be H. So I'm going to eliminate choices G and I. And the second thing that I can look for is the one that has a rise over run of 1 over 2. And actually these are reverse of each other, so it would be, the answer is H because it goes down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2, where in F it goes down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1. So the answer in this case is H. I hope that that was good, and you can let me know on Emoto if you have any questions.